The floor is yours, Mike. The floor is yours.
Sure. Two things for the pre-show before we start talking about hockey. One's sort of, well, both are hockey related, obviously. I was at the Marlies Albany Devils Game 7, excellent game last night at Ricoh Coliseum in Toronto. Toronto wins 4-3, and it comes out after the game because obviously they couldn't set the schedule for the next series until they determined who was who was the team that was going to play Hershey. And it comes out that in spite of the fact that Toronto is the AHL equivalent of the President's Trophy winner and has home ice advantage throughout the playoffs, they're starting on the road for the second time in 3 series. Why? Because the building managers in Hershey decided to book the circus from May the 25th to May the 30th, which would have been right smack dab in the middle of when games 3, 4, and 5 of the series would have to be played. So now,
circus is a sure thing, Mike.
well, no, but as soon as I heard that, I harkened back, and I remember, and Russ would be the one to talk about this. I remember the Rangers always had the Barnum and Bailey circus booked in April, right at the beginning of the playoffs.
The 2 biggest times that became an issue was the first one was in 1950. When they were playing the Detroit Red Wings in the Stanley Cup, and the Rangers' home ice was Maple Leaf Gardens. So that was one time. They lost that, and they lost that Stanley Cup as a result. I think that was a big reason. And then the other time was they would always have this happen, and one day Emile Francis, the GM, walked into his office, and there was elephant dung just streaming down the walls. He made sure after that never happened again.
Oh,
awesome!
This arena is going to shit. Oh, this is no, but it's just it's. I mean, I understand that they can't predict whether the team is going to is going to advance in the playoffs, but you would think that they wouldn't have something that's a really long. I mean, this is 6 days in late May. You would think that they would conceive of the fact that, hey, our team might advance to the conference final.
When do they have to book it? Do you know? Do you know when they book it, or around when?
I mean, I have no idea, but I would guess
the circus is probably a good year.
Months in advance. Probably 6 months. Probably at least 6 months.
The circus comes to town. That's why the Flyers are always away on Christmas. Like, it always comes down to Christmas and New Year's. Comes to Philly.
Right. Yeah, and
the news right now, actually, that Vladimir Tarasenko's son has been born. He will still play tonight, but he was born today. So
he missed the skate today. It was just funny to read. He missed the skate today because he was at the birth of his son. It was just like, it seemed silly to compare those 2 things. Like, he missed the skate. His son
was born. Give him a break.
So we'll be talking about his son for the 2034 draft.
Something like that. Hey, Mike.
Somebody said he was born left-handed. It's like, well,
Mike, you missed a good quote. I'm sure you heard it. But the Connor Brown quote, "We didn't come this far to come this far," is basically the Yogi Berra equivalent for hockey now. That was a fantastic quote.
I was standing right in front of him when he said it. If it was at the post game, there was actually a really large crowd of reporters, so I couldn't hear everything. I got them on my phone, but I couldn't hear everything that they were saying because there was, I would say, about 15 reporters there for the game.
Wow.
I have to bring this up before we start the show, and I had to save it for Jillian because watching Game 1 of San Jose and St. Louis, it was pretty tough for any male watching that game to not be distracted.
Oh, I was distracted too, honestly. With
what does it do with that?
I mean, it's just, I think anybody would be distracted by that, honestly. It was,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
No, I kept thinking I had overinflated my tires. I kept going outside.
But I knew this happened to DeBoer before. It's Peter DeBoer that's the common denominator.
Yeah, I was like...
so is it a Peter DeBoer controversy now? Is that what we got?
Ross dug up the video from,
I'm sorry.
from 2012 with Peter DeBoer, and it was a female entrepreneur named, I think it was Taylor Stevens, I think her name was, and she had purchased tickets and was smack dab right behind the bench.
I mean, anybody who's behind the bench, when you're sitting behind there, you know you're going to be on TV.
Right.
Well, I don't know if it's her again. If this is some. It may be because
there was somebody in Anaheim, and the same thing happened in the Anaheim series. I remember. This is not a common thing.
This person knew because they were talking to the friend next to him when the camera was on. She was moving her locket.
Yeah.
She knew.
Adjusting her bra strap.
She knew.
You know.
No, I mean, geez, of course she knew. I mean, it's like, you know, like Jillian said, you know you're going to be on TV, so you know you're not, you know.
I mean, I actually, generally speaking, enjoy watching like people behind there that aren't on their phones. Like I always appreciate that. There was a guy last night behind Sullivan where he had his rally towel on his head with like a cap on and like was like praying at him. And it was just like, that's good. That's good stuff. Like, you know, you're not on your phone. You're engaged. I mean.
That's awesome.
But yeah, sometimes they can be distracting, Mike. They can be distracting.
Dolly Parton's at the game. I mean, it was ridiculous. And the thing is, and this will be, you know, not who's going to win the game, not who's in goal, not is Tarasenko going to play. The utmost on my mind for the beginning of the St. Louis San Jose is when they first show Peter DeBoer. If that girl is behind, if she's a season ticket holder, which I don't think she is, but if she's a season ticket holder and she's behind that bench again.
I have sources. I'll find out if she's a season ticket.
I'm curious. I'm curious if she'll be there, because if she is, you start wondering about Peter DeBoer, right? Like, hey, who is this lady friend?
Yes. No.
Yeah, right. It's Peter DeBoer's friend. I don't think so. Didn't she have a blues?
Oh, I'm not saying it is.
She had blue stuff on though, didn't she?
100% sarcastic.
No, I know. She had blue stuff on though, didn't she?
Blue stuff on, but yeah, and the previous incarnation, I believe, was a Kings fan.
And I've seen them at the Ducks games too.
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe they wear the opposite jersey so you don't put the dots together.
Right.
Oh, Russ. Good thing.
Yeah, there you go. Russ is thinking.
Wow.
This is the daughter of Morgana, the Kissing Bandit, apparently, or something like that.
Actually, these two don't know what that is, Mike, and maybe people in the audience.
Jillian doesn't know who that is.
What is?
Morgana, the Kissing Bandit, was a woman, a rather well endowed lady in the 70s and 80s who used to jump out of the stands at baseball games, and mostly baseball games. It wasn't jump out of the stands and would go up to like a player like George Brett and give him a big hug and a kiss.
Yeah,
no one happening nowadays. Could you imagine how fast security would be on her?
Security would gleefully tackle her.
I think the biggest one she did was Nolan Ryan in the All-Star game. Was that?
Yeah, didn't he shun her? Didn't he like say no thanks?
He did.
Yeah, there was a.
It used to happen to me too when I would perform. A lot of times, women would jump up on stage and run up to me. I can tell you, it's very distracting. It is
only when you're wearing that shirt.
Correct.
That is distracting.
Ladies.
No, I definitely, One thing I'm good at, I'm good at the ladies, right?
It's distracting, yes. Okay.
All right, let's start the show. Why don't we? My source in St. Louis says I do not know if she is.
Tell them to dig in. Tell them to dig. This is really important information.
It's important. Talk of the town. You got to get on it right now.
Utmost importance. There's nothing more important than this.
Tarasenko's child. That's it's last hour's news.
My eyes have to prepare for tonight. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't find that all that attractive. That's like, I mean, I'm just putting it out there. Like, I mean,
it's hard not to notice it. That's all. That's what I think. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like
weird to me. It's obviously exhibitionism, but it's just I don't find it much like. I mean, it's not I don't think it's distracting. I think it's just weird.
Well, it is distracting. It is distracting. I'm not saying that that's.
I'll tell you what. Here's how you could find out, Nick. In the back there, instead of superimposing the strobe light, superimpose instead of blue, and keep it up there the whole show. And
I won't be here tomorrow. I will not be here tomorrow. I'm taking my daughter to New York tomorrow to see Hamilton, the great musical, for her birthday. Just Father and Daughter Day. I'm looking forward to this morning. I've looked forward to it anything very long time. Really excited. Just the two of us taking the train up. Awesome stuff. But I will on Thursday be back. And on Thursday I will make sure I have a person like that behind me.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
I know a couple people in the neighborhood that can just stand behind us.
Okay.
And, we'll see if it's distracting or not.
See if it's distracting or not.
So then there will be 3 boobs in the studio.
Oh, where's your little sound effect for that one?
Yeah. All right. Ready?
Stuff.
The bell time.
Does that actually help you, Mike? Sorry.
Yes, it does. I can actually find it on the sound file. I can find that, find that and find my head shaking when I hear it. So.
Oh.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, May 17th, 2016.
I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Jillian Fisher.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. And you're watching HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you cleavage-free, Monday through Friday at 1 p.m.
Do you want some? I mean,
I never turned that down.
Whoa. We're good for now.
You're good for now? Okay.
See what happens in the middle of summer. Then we might middle of the summer when there's not much to talk about, Jillian, then we'll talk. But for now, we got a lot going on.
I like how all three of you didn't know what to say when I said that.
Oh, I knew what to say. That doesn't help on iTunes, believe me.
Well, I don't know. This will already be the largest rated podcast, and someone's definitely going to make a GIF out of that, Jill. You're all set. So no, let's move on. All right, so let's talk last night. Pittsburgh gets back into it, and man, oh man, the story of that game was not Pittsburgh getting it back into it, in my opinion, but it was Vasilevsky. I mean, that was the story of that game. I mean, Pittsburgh does tie the series, of course, and that's huge. And Crosby finally scores a goal in overtime, because that's the only thing he hadn't done in his career, apparently, was score a playoff overtime goal. But Vasilevsky last night, I mean, just insanity. I mean, he was just off the charts. I mean, this guy.
Crazy leg extension, yeah.
Yeah, this guy is absolutely. I mean, I've said it before. In 2 years from now, Bishop is a UFA, and not this year, but next year. And I think Ben Bishop may become one of the highest paid goalies in NHL history, because I think he's going to go off and the Lightning. This is where the Lightning save their money. This is where the Lightning can make it, so they don't have to pay Bishop right away. And
I've been saying that for half a year now.
Yeah, I mean they don't need to have these. This is a definite luxury to have two goalies like this, and then they can Vasilevsky, who a lot of people think might be the better of the two anyway, and down the line, Bishop could be out of there. Now what do you do? I mean, Bishop's healthy. In the past, they have shown they've gone back to Bishop. If Bishop's okay, I mean, but if you have games like that one, what do you think? What do you think, Russ?
Well, they still have to go back to Bishop, but I think in the off season, I would be shopping Ben Bishop. I would shop him already, because I know about these other contracts that I have to do, and Vasilevsky is a guy that at some point is going to need to start playing more games.
Right.
Because he's not playing enough games. I mean, he's a guy that's ready but not playing enough games. And so I think at the end of the day, they could only buy their time for so long with this. And let's face it, Bishop is getting more banged up as the years go on here, and I would try and move him over the summer. But as far as this series, you have to go back to Bishop. You can't mess with it right now.
Well, that was the point I was going to make, Russ, because he's been hurt in 2 consecutive playoffs. So
Right.
I know he's a great goaltender. I know he's one of the best goaltenders in the league. He may very well be able to demand high money in free agency after next year. But you also have to factor in the fact that he was injured in the playoffs last year. He's injured again now, and that has to mitigate the what they could get back in a trade or what he would be able to demand in free agency. To your point, also, they had to send Vasilevsky down at times during the year to get him work. I mean,
Right.
this Bishop was playing so many games in a row. I saw Vasilevsky play in Toronto for Syracuse against the Marlies. So I think he was sent down 2 or 3 times. They would call up Gudlevskis, let him sit behind Bishop, and let Vasilevsky get 2 or 3 games. If they keep Bishop, it's probably going to be the same thing. Bishop will play 55 to 60 games. Vasilevsky will play 22. And then, but yeah, I think this proves if they continue to go with him, he's the number 1 goaltender. He's just the number 1 goaltender in waiting.
Yep.
I just got another text about the woman behind the bench. And apparently,
We got a priority.
It is my number 1 priority right now. Apparently, she is not a season ticket holder, and does appear to just have shown up. And will she be there? I mean, I'm sure that's expensive to get, and I'm sure you don't just go on StubHub and get that. So somebody knows.
Oh, I think you can just go on StubHub and get it. That's the funny thing.
Because StubHub has a seat-specific location. You can Like if it's
Oh yeah,
behind.
no, but well, let's try. Let me see if I can at least.
All right.
Mike,
Okay,
I know you want to
well,
go.
we're talking
Mike,
about-
I think if I send you to research and talk to her personally, like if I can get another seat right next to her, will you go? And
No, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. No, I mean, there are plenty more ladies that I would prefer to sit next to at a hockey game.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, kept thinking I overinflated my tires. Had to run out to the garage. But
it's interesting the situation the Lightning are in because I wouldn't say it's exactly the same as the Penguins, but it's a similar situation where their backup goalie is the starting goalie. I mean, they're both in a similar type of situation. And again, with the Lightning too, with Drouin, he was also the one that was requesting more minutes because this seems to be an interesting thing the Lightning team has is that they have so much talent that's not getting enough time to play. I mean, we're seeing it now with Drouin, but it's just interesting to me that they have so much talent in some of these areas. But what do you do with when you have too many but not enough time to play them?
Yeah, where do you go with it at this point? I mean, you do have. I mean, there is definitely signs of Murray last night. Not that he was terrible at all, but he was shaky. He did not look confident. And as the game went on, there was a play right down towards the end of the game where he really made a bad almost botched a glove save that turned into a rebound that could have been a huge problem. But Murray just running out of steam. It's very possible. I mean, he's a young goalie. I mean, this is a lot of pressure over a long period of time. And Marc-Andre Fleury, they asked him if he was ready, and of course, he's like, oh, I'm ready whenever they want to put me in there, I'm ready. So,
well, to Jillian's point, it's almost an exact situation between the two because, I mean, Fleury. The only difference is Fleury signed an extension last year, I believe, a 4-year extension, and he's got another 3 years left in his contract. He's had injury problems now, concussion that's kept him out for a while. Now Murray has played wonderfully, so he's probably fully recovered from the concussion. And just because Murray has played doesn't mean that he's been out this long. But again, it will mitigate teams' interest. Fleury, I believe, is 32 or 33 years old. I think he's maybe a year younger. I'm not looking at his profile.
But he's been to a few cups, so he's got it's tougher to get rid of him than Bishop, in my mind.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you look at the situation objectively and say these goaltenders are great. They're veterans. They're proven. But they're also expensive, and it will be tough to move them and get equal value. And that's why I think, like the situation with Tampa, and we'll get into the game, but the situation with Tampa with Bishop is I don't think they're going to get equal value for him. And if they've made the cup, the conference final 2 years in a row and potentially the cup final 2 years in a row, if they're going to lose Stamkos, which a lot of people believe they are, they're not going to want to rock the boat and move any other key pieces off of that roster. They're going to want to probably stay as much status quo as they possibly can. Maybe they trade Bishop at the deadline next year if they're confident that Vasilevsky can step in. But as for the game last night, the thing that I took from it, and Eric Erlinson pointed out in his column today, and it was a really good column, was the fact that Tampa had most of the advantages. They were down 2-0. They came back, tied the game 2-2. And in the third period, they sat back like they were letting Pittsburgh come to them. They didn't. Not to say they didn't show any killer instinct, but you're playing with house money. You really should have been playing a little looser and going for the win. Because if you bury Pittsburgh down 2-0 in Pittsburgh, you got them where you want them. Instead, I think they sat back a little bit, waited for Pittsburgh to make a mistake. They didn't, and then they scored the goal early in overtime. And now, they get one game in Pittsburgh, and that's good. But winning 2 games in Pittsburgh would have been much better.
Well, Strawman came back in, and and honestly, he scores a nice goal in the beginning. But beyond that, was definitely shaky at times, and was a problem on 2 of the goals, the first goal and the last goal. Strawman got caught.
He hasn't played in 6 weeks, so yeah,
he hasn't played in 6 weeks, and there is something about bringing players back who, after long stretches of time, in the middle of a team that is winning in the playoffs. Like this has always been an issue. I've seen it before. This is not the first time. This is also, why would you not bring Strawman back? Of course, he's a great defenseman. You would have to bring him back, but there is sometimes an adjustment period. There tends to be, just like we always talk about, if someone gets hurt, someone else has to pick it up, and other people pick up the slack. There tends to be a letting go of the slack at times when someone comes back. You see this where players don't play the same level they were playing because Strawman's back now. We can sort of relax a little bit, and I got a sense of that. And I think we'll get the same thing when Stamkos returns to the series, which is a tough thing too. because you really do see that these teams are playing. They're like a finely oiled machine, and when they're winning, especially in hockey, there's so much superstition involved with it. Like, we're winning just the way we are. We're going to not change anything, and then you throw big players back into the lineup, and that should be better. And you have to do it if they're healthy, but.
Less so with Stamkos in the sense that they're not putting Stamkos back on one of the top 2 lines. The way it looks is they're going to put him back on the 4th line. If they put him back like with Killorn and Drouin, say, for example, then his being rusty after being out for 6 weeks, I think would affect them a lot. If he's playing with Nemestikov and JT Brown and maybe being on the second power play, I don't think it's going to really adversely affect Tampa that much.
It won't, but it won't be forever. Here's some things. So I researched tickets. You can get tickets for tonight or tomorrow, like $1,000 or $1,500 down low. I don't know how low, but down low. So you can get them.
I was going to say, in the regular season, you can buy them up against the glass. I do know. So the playoffs might be different, or they might all be gone. But I do know that StubHub does have the functionality where you can, and it says like on the glass. It'll tell you where it is actually on the glass. Yeah, I know this because I went to go buy them one time. So.
I've done it with my daughter, especially for AHL games. When you take your kids to AHL games, I always take them I always sit on the glass with the kids so they can, because it's like $30 or $40 to sit on the glass, and it's just like. It does. If you ever get a chance to take your kids to an NHL game, do that. Just send the money and take them and sit on the glass, because it's amazing, what the experience that they get watching hockey like directly in front of them, like the ability of nothing between them and the rink. It's awesome.
And there's definitely tickets for sale. The other thing I wanted to say about the game, and then I'll let you go, Mike. Sorry. First off, Pittsburgh came out as hard as we thought they would, as fast as they thought they would, and that was smart. The Malkin Crosby line worked great, so I think they're going to keep them together. That was fine. I mean, maybe that's what you need to do to wake up Crosby. I mean, Crosby, obviously got the big game winner. I thought they played Strowman too much, Tampa. I thought, like, at the end when he had that mistake, you're setting him up to fail. He hasn't been in there in forever, and now you're sort of putting him back into a role that I don't think he's not 100%. Like, I know there's coaches that say, well, if you're playing, you're 100%, right? But they're not. And so I think that's something where they have to sort of adjust, and I think Pittsburgh took advantage of it. I think the extra speed from Schultz was definitely on display, and that helped. And I think even though Mata may be the better defender because he's not 100%, it was better to have Schultz, and probably going forward it's better to have Schultz in there and let Mata heal, and then maybe at some point you switch him back out. I think that was kind of important too. I looked at the Tampa game and I said they were missing Ryan Callahan. I know he's not scoring goals, but you know what? He's a leader in their locker room. He is a pest on the ice. He lays those big hits, and with him not in there, it was a different team. I know we're missing Stamkos already, but Stamkos and Callahan, that was a lot for them to overcome, and probably too much.
Especially when Callahan, aside from the hit on Letang, right after he got out of the penalty box after the 5-minute boarding penalty, he went after somebody again and basically was saying, "You're not stopping me. I'm gonna ram you guys through the back boards."
Right.
And he continued to do that all night. Now apparently he had the flu, so that was the reason he sat out.
He had food poisoning.
I'm sure somebody in Pittsburgh gave him the.
There was somebody made a joke. There was like, I'm sure somebody at the hotel is getting a raise for the food poisoning.
Yeah.
What do they call that? What's that play at the hotel right across from the arena that we always
plate?
There's the Hilton place. They have the Spirit. I forget what Steelhead something. Oh man, I'll think of it. But there's a whole thing right across from the Penguins arena where we've stayed about.
Probably gave them a special delivery Parenti brothers, and I think nobody would get sick eating that.
And to X's point, and I think it's a really good one.
Why, thank you.
Strawman played 18:39. He played almost 19 minutes. He was the second highest ice time.
That's an X point to my point.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
I agree. Thanks, Russ.
I'm spreading the credit around here. I mean, he played more than Carl. He played more than Coburn. The only defenseman he didn't play as much as was Hedman.
Yeah.
And you had 7 defensemen. So the whole purpose of having 7 defensemen was to spread out the minutes more and to play him 18:39. And I get it. Late in the game, you want your best defensive pairing out there, and I'm sure they had Hedman and Strowman paired. But still, that's just too much.
He had a mistake late in the game. I'm just saying, if you know you're gonna save him for late in the game, then let that 7th defenseman play more in garbage time, late in periods like late in the first period, maybe early in the second period. do it that way. But he definitely played too much. I just didn't have the data to back it up. But thanks, Mike. Thanks for thinking about me.
How about Crosby only played 17 minutes? I mean, that was also very strange, in my opinion. I mean, for him, he had a rough first game, I guess, and they were playing him less. But and obviously, he's been separated from Ed Sheeran. I always call him Ed Sheeran. Obviously, it's Connor Sheary. Ed Sheeran is his singer.
Wow.
Connor Sheary, Ed Sheeran. Yeah, that's a good.
Well, I'll say this: he's a singer.
Ed Sheeran is very good, very talented songwriter. By the way, have you ever listened to Ed Sheeran? Really?
I have. I've tried. I put earplugs in.
No, he is really.
I put earplugs in, like the actual music was playing, or the music was playing and you put earplugs in.
I put it to block the music.
Do you like Ed Sheeran at all, Jill?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like his music.
Yeah, I think he's a crazy talented guy. But
That's not a great ringing endorsement, but anyhow.
No, Connor Sheary, who's not Ed Sheeran in any way, shape, or form, was taken off the Crosby line, and that was and really on the bench. I mean, Connor Sheary, just for what it's worth, he was the guy who gave Crosby all this short term.
Which, by the way, can we now just make the case that anything that coaches say or anything that is reported before games regarding line alignments is a complete load of crap? Because yesterday, what they said was we're going to move Hornquist down to the second line with Malkin. We're going to put Sheary up on the top line. We're going to and no, what they did was they put Crosby with Malkin. Yeah, it's like
right.
Okay, so this is Mike Sullivan, as Russ has said before. This is from the Tortorella school. This is the disinformation campaign. This is like the Donald Trump campaign, actually. You just have to go into the game not believing anything that is being spewed by the coaches, because I just don't think that they're going to tell you the truth.
Can I ask your guys' opinion on a comment that was made about Sidney Crosby's work ethic?
Yeah.
I'm just curious what you all thought of it. Personally, I thought that was a little bit out of line. I don't think it looked like he was working. I don't think I would question his work ethic.
Well, tell everybody the comment, Joe.
An analyst had commented that maybe
Jeremy Roenick.
We can say who it is.
It was an analyst. Jeremy Roenick said that maybe he should look at the work ethic of Drouin every night. That Crosby should look at Jonathan Drouin's work ethic, which is like, can you go back maybe like a couple of months and see if you can't make that comment several months ago, you shouldn't make it now.
I want to know how Mike feels about that when Mike went to cover Drouin in a game that he didn't show up to play in earlier this year.
Can we go back to last year's Stanley Cup playoffs when basically John Cooper had to be dragged kicking and screaming to put Jonathan Drouin into the lineup?
No,
he's a talented player, but I don't know if you compare his work ethic to somebody else's. Like he's not who I'm going to compare work ethics with.
It was out of line. I mean, look, everybody was looking for excuses why Crosby wasn't scoring. He still was doing plenty of other things on the ice. I mean, here's the reality. Back in the day, Wayne Gretzky, when he scored, he didn't do a lot of other things on the ice. He didn't have to. They didn't ask him to. Crosby does so many other things. He forechecks. He plays defense. He does a lot of things. He is a responsible player. When he's on the PK, he's playing for real. Like when Gretzky was on the PK, he was playing to score. Yeah. And so I think it's really unfair of Roenick to say that. Now, has Drouin amped up his work ethic to what it used to be? Absolutely. He's been a beast. But, yeah, you can't compare it like that. That was just – I think that was JR just sort of giving a little dig. Yeah. And that was his opportunity to give a little dig at Sidney Crosby and whatever.
No, but you know what? It's not uncommon when it comes to Crosby, because if you remember in 2010, there were a lot of people, Canadian media and American media, who were criticizing Crosby for not producing. And let me see. Who scored that golden goal for Canada in the gold?
Oh, don't remind us.
No, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, I was rooting for Team USA, but I'm saying the guy is such a talent that, I'm sure that part of the game plan that John Cooper is putting forth for Tampa Bay is neutralize Sidney Crosby, and that's why they have Malkin on the line. So it's going to be tough for him to really stand out like he normally does. Well, Jeremy's got egg on his face because look who scored the goal 40 seconds into overtime.
Yeah, and it was there was a lack of defense. There was a defensive breakdown there, but also that was a nice, very pretty goal. It was when you watch, you're like, it's almost like you think he heard that one. It was like, take that, like talk about my work ethic. It was nice.
But he also had another shot in that game that could have been a goal. That was out of a bouncing puck that very few players could even get a shot on goal on, and he still went top shelf with it, which was crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I mean, Drouin's he's a crazy talented player, obviously.
No, not Drouin. This was Crosby.
Oh, Crosby. Well, yeah. I'm sorry, Crosby. Yeah, Crosby's goal was phenomenal. I mean, it's vintage Crosby. You know, kind of dropping down to a knee and putting it up in the upper corner. That's a crazy Crosby shot.
Well, after I don't remember if it was after Game 1. It was sometime during Game 1 when in our text conversation that all of us have. I basically said NHL general managers, after watching Drouin score a goal, just like forget he's on the market.
Yeah, I want to say this too. Crosby's got 47 goals in 113 playoff games. So even with that drought, that's a pretty amazing goal total, and he's got 130 points in 113 playoff games. Nobody in hockey is probably even close to that production. Nobody.
You're absolutely correct. And Ovechkin has some pretty good playoff statistics. But I think that that is also there was one time late in the game where Crosby threw a really big check on Hedman behind the net that I was really that was one of those he threw everything he could. Hedman's as big as you possibly can, and Crosby could have easily gotten himself hurt by throwing this check. It was a serious throw. I mean, Crosby is one of my favorite players of all time. I mean, he always has been. And that's a hard thing to say in Philadelphia because he's hated around here. But I just think that honestly, he is I've always felt that Crosby is the most talented grinder ever to play the game, and that's my theory on him. That he's a superstar, but he's not like a superstar like a Gretzky or Lemieux or players like that. He grinds it out, and work ethic is not an issue with Sidney Crosby. That's an insane thing.
But he wanted to score too. It's not like he's trying to not score. Like it's not like he's skating around like, oh, I'm totally fine not scoring and not feeling like I'm contributing. Like I love that. He's a competitive guy. Any guy in the NHL is never going to be okay with feeling like they're not going to contribute or wanting to help the team out.
But when a team neutralizes another player's offensive output, he's got to contribute other things. That's the criticism that a lot of people. I mean, I was never a big Gretzky fan. Obviously, he's one of the greatest players of all time. But one of the problems with him was what Russ said. Defensively, I thought he was inept. His best defense was the fact that he was continually attacking and putting everybody on their heels. So Crosby, when he doesn't generate offense, he can check. He's good along the boards. He can basically out-neutralize the other player offensively. So, I mean, he's got other aspects of his game that are beneficial. What I think is not lost here, but the series now is 1-1 going back to Tampa. Tampa got what they wanted. I mean, I'm sure they would have loved to have won 2 games, but they got the split. And this is not like a team that's going to get, like, I would say, overconfident. John Cooper will keep them in check. And if they do get Stamkos back for Game 3, I think that'll be an even bigger emotional lift. I mean, I thought Pittsburgh was going to win this series, but now I think it's a dead even series because Tampa Bay is not going to be pushed around.
So here's something interesting about Ovechkin. So he's got 82 points in 84 games, 41 goals. So he's 6 less goals in 29 games for Crosby, but he still doesn't have the same kind of point production that Crosby does. So even as great as we think Ovechkin is,
But everybody's been a critic of him in the playoffs. But the thing is that's a product of him being, for most of that time, the biggest weapon, the only weapon on the Caps. Right. Only in the last couple of years has there been, more guys to take the heat off of him.
But still, 41 goals in 84 games is tremendous.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I mean, the save, there were a lot of great moments in last night's game. Obviously the save, the Vasilevsky save on Crosby, one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Wanted to show that one to everybody, but it was I mean, this was a crazy cool good save here. Hopefully this will work.
And this is why he was drafted in the first round, because of that leg extension.
Yeah, so you can see here.
He moves, and you're just like, you don't expect a big guy like that to move. It's watching it. You're like, how is he doing that?
Kind of looks like a crab in this pose that he's frozen into.
Now here's Vasilevsky has another year on his contract. On his entry-level deal, making $925,000. Bishop, both him and Bishop are free agents, but he's an RFA. Bishop's a UFA after next year. Yes. So really, Yzerman doesn't have to do a thing. He could stick with Bishop and Vasilevsky, have the best goaltending tandem.
For one more year for sure.
Yeah. And now, if he finds a deal out there and somebody overpays him for Bishop, then I'm sure he'll do it. But the thing is, you're trading for a guy who's 1 year away from free agency. So I think that will mitigate any potential trade of Bishop in the offseason.
Not any. There's a team that's always going to look for a 1 year goalie. There is.
Sure. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that it's definitely possible. I'm just saying I don't think that, just like Yaroslav Halak did not get and I'm not comparing the two, but just like Yaroslav Halak didn't get a great return for Montreal after that big playoff year in 2010.
Maybe St. Louis would want Bishop. Oh, wait, never mind.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right.
Don't get started on the Elliott argument.
Yeah, he's such a legend in that town too. That's the crazy thing about him. Like he was, as a kid growing up in the St. Louis area, people were talking about him. I remember Andy Strickland talking about him when he was like a 10-year-old. Just crazy.
They traded him for nothing. They traded him for second. I believe it was a second-round pick.
I know. Goalies are weird. You have to be patient with them, and you have to put them in the right situation. And so much with goalies, I do believe, depends on the kind of team that's playing in front of them. There are goalies that play better.
Absolutely.
They play.
A huge part of I've always felt this way, that having a good defense in front of you can make a good goalie great, and then when they get that confidence, all of a sudden, then they're making these big saves. Because I think a lot of it is a lot of mind games for the goalies too. I mean, it's obviously if they're not going to be a great goalie or a good goalie, having a good defense in front of you is not going to change that, but it can really help you.
And not just that, but just even some goalies that some teams like the Devils are a perfect example. Marty Brodeur was the perfect goalie for that situation because Brodeur was able to play a game where he only got 15 shots on him, and a couple shots that came to him would be great shots, and you have to be ready for them. Bishop has shown that ability as well, the ability to be in there and be able to keep his mental stability. There are some goalies in the league, I think Steve Mason's a good example in Philadelphia, who's not always as great if you don't get as many shots on him. But he's a great goalie, and then some goalies who just completely thrive on, getting tons of shots. Like Luongo is a good example. Luongo, the more shots you get on him, the better he is too. But he can be a problem if you don't get a lot of shots on him.
I think though about just this playoffs in general, especially the conference finals on both sides, is goaltending is huge. I mean, it's in the Capitals, listen to me, the Lightning and Pens. I mean, you hear all about goaltending, and then even with the Blues, I mean, Elliott was a big reason for them winning that game in Game 1. So goaltending is a huge story. It's a huge storyline.
He was, and Hitchcock came out and said today how he was really disappointed in the way they played Game 1, despite the win, and saying that they have a better level to play that. And I do agree with him. I mean, they have played a lot better than that in the playoffs for sure. So I think you're going to see a different Blues team tonight. And the question is, do the Sharks have more too? I think the Sharks have more as well. I think both those teams really didn't come out with their full game, even though the Sharks at times dominated the game. I think there's another level that both those teams were coming off of the kind of emotional wins in their last series, and neither team was up for Game 1 necessarily. But you'll see it tonight, I think.
It's funny because 3 of the 4 teams that are in the conference final have playoff neophytes in goal. They don't have a lot of experience in Jones, Vasilevsky, and Murray, and the one that does have experience has bad experience up until this year because he was always been a guy who did not come through for his team in the playoffs, and this year has played better. But yeah, I mean, St. Louis better step up their effort because it's generally acknowledged that they got outplayed by San Jose in Game 1, and they were pretty lucky to win. I think that you're going to need Daddy Tarasenko playing at his utmost, and
Sorry,
Daddy Tarasenko is a new nickname. I'm sorry, that's how I'm going to hear it for the rest of the game.
He has the best excuse, having been through the birth, the miracle that is childbirth a couple times now. He's got the best excuse not to be with his wife tonight. It's normal. Like normally, I'm telling you, when both my kids were born, I was in the hospital for 4 straight days, sleeping on a folding chair basically, and it was agonizing. It was awesome, but it was agonizing to be there because it was really, hospitals. My daughter was born on Memorial Day weekend, so it was like it was a ghost town, and it was really bizarre. So
I would have Skyped it, but that's just me.
Yeah, that wouldn't.
I'm waiting for somebody carrying a sign in St. Louis to have Vlad the Dad. That'll be that. So somebody will have that.
That's a great sign.
Vlad the Dad. Well, my real quick story about this is really funny. We had a probably remember a lot of people remember Bert the dog, who was our dog before Buzz, who did predictions for Hockey Buzz. He was kind of a little famous. He was a great corgi. when we had him before, he was our first kid in our family here. So before we had him before my daughter. My daughter was born, and everybody said, the first night she's born, they give them a little like outfit and a hat and all this stuff that they sleep in, and they said, do you have a dog at home? I'm like, yeah, we got a corgi at home. Oh, well, you should take this hat because it has the smell of your baby on it. Take this hat back to the dog ahead of time and show it to the dog so that the dog will not be threatened by the baby when she comes in. I said, oh, great, no problem. My wife's like, yeah, you got to do that. So I didn't do it the first night. I'm like, I forgot the hat. Okay, I'll go the second night. I bring the hat back. So I go back and I bring the hat there, and everybody was really nervous. Like, oh, make sure you show the hat to Bert. Make sure you show the hat to Bert. So I gave the hat to Bert, and he proceeded to rip it to shreds in front of me. Just tore it apart, like completely ripped it. So I go back to the hospital, and I'm like, she said, did you show Bert the hat? That's the hat. I'm like, yeah, I showed Bert the hat. Sorry. I showed Bert the hat. Did he like it? Yeah, he liked it a lot.
He ate it.
We're good.
He liked it so much he ate it.
We're good. Yeah. So, although they never did attack our daughter when she came home, but it was kind of disconcerting thing to do.
We're like, what is going to happen if we bring her into this house?
Yeah, there is so much stuff that goes on though, like emotionally when you have a child. That's like the thing that is hard to. It's hard. I know he's going out to play tonight on the ice, and it's probably he's thrilled that he can do it, and but there's so much that goes through your head. I mean, if the child's healthy and everything, that's great, and everything's probably fine. I haven't heard anything like otherwise to otherwise, but often there's little things wrong with kids, that they're no big deal, but you got to go through it. So and everybody's very nervous, and I'm sure his wife. I hope his wife has family. I mean, they're Russian, right? So I think his wife's Russian as well, from what I remember. So hopefully the family's over here to help her out, because it's nerve-wracking to be in. It's nerve-wracking to be in the hospital for a woman, right after the baby's born by herself. So. And right now, Tara's thinking
you have a life that you're now responsible for. Could you imagine?
It's incredible.
Like, here you go, and it's like, what do I do?
Oh yeah,
now?
no, that was my wife. My wife and I had an expression. It's your turn not to kill the baby. That was what we used to say. I'm like, okay, your turn not to kill the baby, and you hand the baby to each other, and we would try our best not to kill the baby.
There is a reason I am childless. It's out of choice.
It gets better with kids. With kids, it gets better, and then it gets worse, but it gets better again. Yeah. But anyway, that's just inside. I do have a rumor to talk about today, too.
Let's talk about this.
So Patrick Laine, who is currently playing against the Canadiens as we speak in this battle of undefeateds, is obviously is considered now the second pick in the draft. Has basically found that spot, and the Winnipeg Jets. I can't imagine why they would consider trading him at all. He seems like he's doing everything they want him to. However, apparently Cheveldaev has had discussions with people and has had, he's very, very secretive GM when I say this, so it's hard to say whether this is 100% accurate or not, but there's enough people telling me that there are considerations here that makes me wonder if there is a consideration that Winnipeg would ask for like a king's ransom for this kid as a possible draft. And in some teams, like I heard the Flyers could get involved with this, and it would be a major deal. It would be like Braden Shen, it would be Travis Sanheim, it would be Moran, and possibly something else, or possibly Connect Me involved in this. How much do you give up, Russ, for this guy? I mean, what do you think?
I wouldn't give up that much, and they would want picks. And the problem with Winnipeg is they want cost certainty. They're a small market team, and they can't add a lot of guys that are going to be RFAs or impending free agents like Braden Shen. Like, they can't do that. If anything, they're going to be dealing back some salary in a deal like this while they're getting more draft picks and young players. So I don't think
some salary could go as well. I think that you're right about that. I've heard that too. Yeah. But yeah, and I think the idea is they want players who can help them right now. That's what I've heard. They want players
who can help them right now. Like, at the end of the day, and even though that's not Cheveldaev's way, is to play a kid right away, Laine could help him right away. You had that kid for 5-6 years before you have to worry about paying him a big salary. I don't see why they'll do it. They'll definitely entertain discussions. I agree with that, and I'm sure he's having them. And he doesn't really tell anybody anything.
No.
But he's going to entertain it because he has to, because there is that interest. But at the end of the day, it's like the Eric Lindros trade. I think the Flyers did a smart thing because it built them a building. They were getting a little saggy in the attendance. People were getting a little fed up at that time, I remember, and it helped attendance tremendously. But at the end of the day, the trade didn't help them. They never won a cup. But the Avalanche definitely won a cup because of that trade. So you have to be careful of that stuff.
Well, the thing is, because you mentioned 3 teams in the rumor, and if you look at what happened with the Flyers this year and their situation where they have a boatload of young defensemen and maybe they can parlay that into a big player, that adds up. The Habs are looking to change the subject when it comes to, there's a talk out there about Subban. They're looking maybe to add a big-time player. Making a deal for Laine might make sense. I honestly think that if there was something between those 2 teams, and Subban would have to be involved. But then the thing is that Winnipeg is a budget team, and he's the highest paid defenseman in the NHL, so it's going to be really tough. Toronto is a non-starter, especially with the players that were mentioned in this. There is not a chance in hell they are trading Morgan Rielly or Nylander, especially since Babcock essentially loves Morgan Rielly. He was upset last year. He was a proponent of them taking Noah Hannafin at number 4 instead of Mitch Marner. It was more the call of Mark Hunter and the scouting staff. So I don't think that the organization and Lou Lamoriello would trade their best defenseman when they really don't have any top pairing or second pairing defenseman other than Rielly. So I mean, Toronto will be content with drafting Austin Matthews first overall and going after Steven Stamkos on July 1st. I don't think they're going to try to hit the grand slam home run of drafting both Matthews and Laine 1-2.
I think there's more actual chance of the 3rd pick being traded than the 2nd pick.
And the 4th pick. Pick.
Yeah, the 3rd pick could go. I memean, is that going to be Puljujarvi? Is that the feeling?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, and that would be Columbus, right?
Yeah. Because Columbus has pieces that they want to trade besides, they may be ready to move on from Hartnell. They may want to trade Jack Johnson. So there is the ingredients there for a big deal if Kekalainen is interested in trading the 3rd pick. But Russ and I have talked about this before. The 4th pick, the Edmonton pick, is the one I think is sort of the hinge, because especially with Philadelphia, if they're, Edmonton is looking for defensemen, and Philly, you've got Provorov, you've got Sanheim, you've got Moran, you've got Hag, you've got Gostisbehere. I mean, you've got so many young defensemen right now, and they can't keep all of them. They need to probably move out one of them, maybe 2 of them, to either get a franchise level player at the top of the draft. They could draft a Dubois or a Matthew Tkachuk with the 4th pick, and that makes a lot of sense for the Flyers. So I would look out for that more than I would look out for a trade up to number 2 to get Laine.
Yeah, I think either one. I think 2 I don't think is going anywhere, but I think 3 or 4 you can make a deal for. And look, I mean, the deal could happen for a 3-way deal where Columbus maybe only moves down 1 spot and Edmonton still trades with Philly. I'm looking sort of at the bigger scheme there.
Yeah.
But I don't think Philly can get any higher than that, and I don't think Edmonton should take a forward, but they still might. But I think if they were to stand pat, they should take their defenseman there and just get your franchise defenseman, because at the end of the day, you almost can't trade for a franchise defenseman anymore.
With the exception of Provorov, who I don't think the Flyers would move. That's the one player I don't think they would move. I think that's.
No, they won't move up.
I mean, is Sanheim a franchise defenseman, Russ, that would make that? I mean, I don't think he's that level, right?
He is, but they would have to have assurances that, like, Gostisbehere's hernia surgery is perfect.
Right.
Okay. And then to bring in, so to move Sanheim, would Sanheim get you to number 4? I don't think so.
Not him alone, no.
Right.
No,
so, I mean, you have to obviously get
probably Philly's first and a guy like Sanheim.
A first, Sanheim, and something else, whether it's a lower level roster player or a prospect.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. I mean, and the Flyers definitely have had so many picks and prospects over the last few years that they are looking at this. I know that for a fact. I've talked to them. They really are looking to move up in the draft. Getting to Laine is very difficult, and I think the 3rd round pick. I think the 3rd pick overall is not going to move. I would actually think Columbus won't move that as much as we were saying that the 2nd pick won't be moved, just because of the fact that Columbus, really what they need is some star power. Like, they need a player who can come in there and be a little bit of like something they can really sell, like a player they can sell. They need to
get rid of a lot of salary, and they are a budget team. That's the only thing.
They are, but this is a kid who's going to be like for 5 years. You won't have to pay him, right? So Puljujarvi, you're bringing Puljujarvi. Is he a superstar? Do we know? I mean, we don't know. But does he bring in that kind of power?
could be a star. He could be a star.
I mean, by all indications, he could be. So
I actually think the main problem for Columbus when it comes to Puljujarvi or whoever will be available at 3 is that it's not a center. It's not a center who can replace Johansson. Puljujarvi is a talent, but he's a winger. I mean, unless you want to trade down and take Dubois, there's not going to be and I don't know if Dubois is a franchise #1 center. He could be.
No, he is.
But you know that I think that pick is more risky than Puljujarvi. You'll get really good production out of Puljujarvi. From what I've seen, he looks to be a very good NHL player.
You will. I think if I'm the Flyers, though, I'm not even trying to get in the top 4. I think if I get around 8, I could get a terrific, amazing forward. I could still trade some of my defensive depth. I don't have to give up many other picks, maybe one other prospect, and then I can get someone like Alex Nylander, and I think he would fit in great with the Flyers. I think that's the kind of trade they should make, similar to Couturier. That worked out. The Couturier trade worked out, and I think they could look to do something similar because getting in the top 5 is very hard, but I think getting in the top 10 won't be as hard.
Right. That makes sense, and they definitely have the assets to pull off something like that. So
yeah.
So that'll be fun. That's all the time we have for today. Unfortunately, got to leave today right at 2 o'clock. But we'll be back again tomorrow, and I won't be here, but the whole crew will be here tomorrow. Jillian, Mike, and Russ will be there.
Yeah.
Well, we say we're going to be here, but if you're not here, who's going to watch us? You don't know.
That's true. You could just have a podcast about anything you want to do. If I'm not here, you can just go ahead.
That's
and
right.
Do it. Yeah, that's fine.
We'll talk about the people in the front row in St. Louis.
Oh boy. Yep. Just there we go. Remember, without the buzz, folks, it is just hockey. We will look forward to that tomorrow.